Okay, yeah, so we're doing this again. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Teching and Barry here. We got a bunch of Pokemon special guests. And yeah, so I think it was around 5 or 6 months ago, last November actually, I did a video where I took the Toby Ropo and gave them Pokemon teams with the fact that I don't know anything about competitive Pokemon teams. And it was like, oh, which Pokemon would Drake have? Which Pokemon would Ulti have? She would have a Cranidos, get it? Because she headbutts people. Okay, that's funny, ha ha ha. But you know what? That video was a lot of fun to make. It was a little something different. It combines two things that I really love, Pokemon and One Piece. And I also want to say I appreciate the so many fans in that video that left comments that actually do know their stuff when it comes to competitive Pokemon teams. And sometimes they would write out like an actual novel of like, okay, I'm going to review all of the Toby Ropo teams that Teching, gave them, and if they would be viable in a competitive Pokemon scene or the kind of attacks that they could have. And so I just want to let everybody know that if you took your time to type out like that essay in response to the last video, I read all of those, okay? I read all of those comments and I really enjoyed it. So if you want to do that again, that would be great, because that's kind of most of the fun of this. So today, we're going to be doing the Yonko, right? All four of the Emperors. Well, five of the Emperors. Seven of the Emperors. There's seven Emperors now. So you got Shanks, Kaido, Big Mom, Whitebeard. Those were kind of the original Emperors at the start of the story. Of course, Whitebeard dies, spoiler alert, and then Blackbeard takes his position, and then eventually Kaido and Big Mom are defeated at the end of Wano. More of a spoiler. And then Luffy and Buggy take their spots. So right now we have 7 different characters that have had the title of Emperor. I guess you could throw Shiki in there too, although I did not include Shiki. Shiki, I think, was confirmed to be an Emperor in the Ace light novel. Like, so before Shanks, then that, Shiki was an Emperor before he got caught and got thrown in Impel Down or whatever. But we don't really know. Just in terms of the canon Emperors in the manga, that's what we're going to be covering today. So, yeah, I basically just went through, picked out 6 Pokemon for each Emperor that I thought made sense. There was a lot I had to cut with this one. I've included a few honorable mentions because last time there was a lot of people, like I remember Black Maria. I did not include Hitmonchan, and she boxes. So a lot of people were like, oh man, Hitmonchan would have been perfect for Black Maria, and I'm like, that's right. But dude, man, there's like 900 something Pokemon now. Actually, aren't we close to 1,000? Wasn't the 1,000th Pokemon revealed? I think I think we're over 1,000 actually. And especially when it comes to the later games, like, I know Gen 1 through 3 pretty well, says the guy that completely messed up. In the last video, the last video I made on the Toby Ropo was like 45 minutes long, but a good 15 minutes of that was just me forgetting the name of Lantern, who was not even, I think I kept saying Lantern was a Gen 3 Pokemon. It was a Gen 2 Pokemon, and that led to, let's just not go back to hell. Let's not go back to that. Oh my god, that was horrible. But anyway, hopefully that won't happen again this time. But I know Gens 1 through 3 okay, and then Gen 4 and 5 are just like, whatever. Then I played Gen 6 and 7, but then beyond that, like, you start getting into 7, 8, 9, and it's just like, I just played Pokemon Violet, so that's a little fresh in my mind. But beyond that, not so much. So feel free to comment on all the Pokemon, like, oh man, this Pokemon would have been perfect for Whitebeard, and you didn't even include him. That's part of this too. There's an interaction with this, okay? So last time, I specifically said no legendaries because the idea that I had was like, I don't think legendaries were allowed in competitive Pokemon, and some people actually corrected me, and it's been a while since I even checked on that, but I think some formats do allow a legendary, so that's a thing. And so I will be including legendaries here. Every Yonko will receive a single legendary. And I feel like that makes sense because, they're emperors. So if they were in the Pokemon games, they would kind of be like the final boss gauntlet. It's like the Elite Four, or I guess the Elite Seven or whatever. So they each have one legendary Pokemon. So that was really fun to go through the emperors and pick out like which legendary embodies them the most. And so that was cool. Hopefully I picked some good ones there. And then aside from that, I really, once again, I don't know much about competitive Pokemon. Pokemon, so I didn't even bother. I tried to have a little bit of type diversity with each Emperor, just for the sake of, like, okay, I always find it boring in Pokemon games when you go into a gym and it's like, I'm Blaine, I have fire types, and I'm like, all right, Blaine, I have like 3 water types on my team. I got 3 water types and a ground type. Do you just want to give me the badge? You know, I mean, I can fight you, but like, it's gonna be quick. Can you just give me the badge? Give me the volcano badge and I'll be on my way. You know what I mean? A lot of times like that. So I try to make the types a little diverse and just to make it interesting, but I don't know if the teams are that good. But who knows? Maybe I accidentally made a really competitive team. That's another part of this. Okay, so without being any more delay, let's get right to it. Let's start off with Shanks. All right, and with Shanks, of course, the rule was all of the Pokemon have to be red. So I gotta tell you, that was a lot of fun, just going through all the different Pokemon and seeing which ones were colored red. And it's like, all right, so mostly every Pokemon that had the color red was considered for Shanks. So that's like an honorable mention to every red Pokemon out there. But let me start with this, and I'll do the legendary last, okay? So first of all, the first Pokemon that popped into my head was Gyarados, okay? Specifically, the shiny Gyarados, the red Gyarados that you see in the Lake of Rage at Mahogany Town in Gen 2. As I've said before, Gen 2 is my favorite gen, and probably that little subplot with that little side quest with the red Gyarados and Lance is probably the most, like, the most memorable moment from that game. Like, I remember getting to Mahogany Town and going to the Lake of Rage and you know, capturing the red Gyarados, and Lance is there, and he's like a vampire, and I always thought Lance was like the coolest guy ever because he is. And so I'm like, okay, red Gyarados has to be on Shanks' team, okay? Which is great, because Gyarados is, I don't know if he's competitively viable anymore, but he's a Gyarados, right? He's a flying water type, and he's capable of Mega Evolutions. That's another thing, too. I tried to make Megas kind of viable for most of these characters, so you can only Mega, I would assume, once per battle, so you couldn't Mega everybody, but having more options would probably be preferable, right? So it's like, first Pokemon we got for Shanks is the red Gyarados of Lake of Rage that can Mega Evolve, and I think he Mega Evolves into Flying Dark or Water Dark. I think it's Water Dark for Mega Gyarados, okay? So that's really cool there. And next one, because I was thinking Aegislash, because Aegislash is a sword. And I was like, okay, I think I already gave one of the Tobiropo Aegislash, and pretty much every swordsman in One Piece. Like, I want to do another one of these for the Warlords, and you could see where this is going with Mihawk. So Mihawk would have to have an Aegislash. But I thought of a better one, better option, a Pokemon that embodies cutting things up, is a steel type, and is colored red, and has a Mega Evolution option, which Aegislash does not. We're going with Scizor, and I love Scizor. Scizor is so cool, right? Scyther was cool enough, but in Gen 2, you get Scizor. I was always upset that I could never get a Scizor when I was a little kid, because you have to trade Scyther with the metal coat to get it, and I don't know about you. I don't know if anybody else out there had no friends with a link cable to trade Pokemon with, but I was certainly one of them. So Scizor, Steelix, you know, any of the trading Pokemon, you know, Gengar or Alakazam, I could just never get, because didn't have a lot of friends that played Pokemon growing up. I had friends that played Pokemon, just not in my immediate vicinity, and you were not allowed to bring Game Boys to school. You might just say, maybe you lived in a place where the teachers didn't care. You could bring your Game Boy or Game Boy Color to school, have a link cable, and trade Pokemon. We were not allowed. If you pulled out your Game Boy, even like during like recess, you would get in trouble at my school, unless you wanted to do it like under the table, like, hey man, I got that metal coat on that Scyther. You want to trade? I got that Scizor for you. Okay, man, just hurry up. And the teacher's watching. Okay, all right. And it's like, okay, got that Scizor. Thanks, man. No problem. You know, so that's how that goes. But yeah, Scizor, steel type, bug, Mega Evolution, and it's colored red, and it has, you know, sharp, you know, cut things up. That's pretty cool, and I think that works for Shanks, okay? Moving on, we have, you know, oddly enough, I thought, because I'm going with a red palette, I was going to have a lot of fire types on here, right? Like, there was going to be a copious amount of fire types. And for that being the case, there's actually only 2 of them, and the first one being Camerupt. All right, I thought Camerupt would be a really cool choice. I had a Camerupt for my Violet run that I enjoyed, and so I had him. And so Camerupt, also completely forgot about it, does have a Mega Evolution as well, and he has like a volcano on his back, and you got a fire, a ground type, so I thought, okay, all right, this could work. Not much really else to say. Fire, ground. I think that's a good combo there. So yeah, fire ground. So grass would be less effective against it, I guess. I don't see, this is the thing, and anybody that's watched me play Pokemon games on here before understands I get confused with typing very easily. But Camerupt's cool, so I went with him. The other fire type, and you might be thinking Charizard, and I'm like, no, not Charizard. We're going with Centiskorch, all right? Who I don't remember at all, but is a centipede that's lit on fire. So it's a fire bug, and it doesn't have a mega or anything, but, like, it looks cool, right? So it's like, yeah. 2 fire types I went with were Camerupt and Centiskorch, and I love centipedes. As far as myriapods go, centipedes are pretty cool, man. So let's go with Centiskorch, all right? So we got Gyarados and Scizor, Centiskorch, Camerupt. That is 4, and then we have the 5th Pokemon, who is another shiny, because I was also looking at, like, okay, let's not just look at regular Pokemon, like their base color is red, let's look at some shiny options. So the red Gyarados was an obvious one, I remembered, but I found this one Pokemon, I don't remember this thing at all, but it's an anchor. It's literally just a Pokemon that is an anchor named Delmise, and oh, by the way, any Pokemon that I'm not familiar with, even ones that I am familiar with, probably gonna mispronounce. There's a big one coming up with Kaido that has been mispronounced ever since I was a kid, so, you know, just prepare for that. But anyway, yeah, we have Delmise, who is an anchor, and the anchor is colored blue, which is boo, not good enough. But the shiny Delmise, bam, we got a red anchor, and I'm like, this is perfect. Shanks is a pirate. Now, technically, yeah, all the emperors are pirates, but Shanks is a real pirate. Shanks was raised by Goldie Roger, king of the pirates. Hats off in respect to Roger. Moment of silence for Roger, king of the pirates. Okay, great. You know, so Shanks is a real pirate. He has the anchor Pokemon, and he has the shiny anchor Pokemon. So there you go. You got Delmise. Are all those any good? Well, I don't know. But now we have the legendary, all right? Now, there was really only 2 options for the legendary for Shanks, and I was kind of bouncing back and forth. The first one that I did not go with was Groudon. It was the first one that popped in my head, and Groudon actually has a mega evolution. He has like a primal evolution, like primal Groudon, right? And so Groudon's really cool, but I instead decided to go with Yveltal from Pokemon X and Y. So Yveltal, which is adding the flying type, but also, you know, Gyarados is already a flying type, but we also have a dark typing as well, whereas Groudon, I think, is just straight ground, I think. I don't think Groudon is fire ground. I think he's just the ground. That's literally the whole point. You know, Kyogre is water, and, you know, Groudon is ground. Camerupt already had ground, so I'm like, okay, Yveltal, flying dark type, legendary, that's pretty cool, so I went with Yveltal there. So, boom, we have Shanks' full team here. Gyarados, Scizor, Camerupt, Centiskorch, Delmise, and Yveltal, with Delmise and Gyarados being shiny. Okay, so, you know, I don't know if it's any good. You guys will let me know on that, but you got a cool legendary, and you got 3 mega options there. Are any of the megas good? I imagine the best one's probably Gyarados, but that's just me. Okay, I'm just a layman here when it comes to Pokemon, all right? So, yeah, moving on next to, KAIDO! Whoa! I really looked into it. I typed in drunk Pokemon, like a Pokemon that just gets drunk the time, and I got a lot of really funny fan art of, like, Pikachu just getting plastered, but I realized, wait a second, no, Pokemon is aimed for a younger demographic. I don't think there's a Pokemon that, like, spends most of his days at the bar just like glug glug glug. Oh man, like alcoholic dragon Pokemon search, you know, it's like, see who it is. But no, of course the theme with Kaido is flying type Pokemon. I should have just put a bunch of ducks in there. I should have put Quaxley in there. I thought about it for the meme. Like, Farfetch'd has to be in there. Quaxley has to be in there. Psyduck has to be in there. It's just a team of ducks. But no, I decided to keep it, you know, like, serious with the fact that Kaido is in fact a giant-ass dragon, and the dragon angle is where we went. However, like, this is what I mean. Like, I'm not into competitive Pokemon, but I at least understand that if you roll up with a team of nothing but dragon types, I have 6 dragon type Pokemon. It's like, that's great. I have an ice type. Here's an ice type, here's a fairy type, here's an ice type and a fairy type. Probably that exists, I don't know. Have fun, you know what I mean? Like, there you go. There's my Glalie. Now, Mega Evolve my Glalie, the Dragon Slayer. Let's roll. You know, let's rock with this. Here's a Sylphion. Have fun, you know, whatever. So I decided to be a little conscious of that, and in which case, we're going to start off with Charizard. Okay, so this is where Charizard ended up. Okay, so Charizard, back in the day, of course, everybody wanted Charizard to be a dragon, and of course, Charizard is fire flying, but he has 2 Mega options. I believe Mega Charizard Y is still fire flying, and then Mega Charizard X is the one that becomes the dragon typing. So it gives you the option if you want it. Now with this one, once again, typing, so he's not a dragon. However, he's still flying, so ice would be effective against him, but he's also a fire type where ice, so does ice just become neutral? Really should have looked this up beforehand, but I'm making this video kind of late, so whatever. Charizard being on Kaido's team, I just had to roll with it. Also, as Lance has said before, not all dragon Pokemon are the dragon type. And I love that logic, because that was a thing in the fan base for so long. Like, there are so many Pokemon that should be dragons that are not dragons. And then Lance just came out and be like, you can be a dragon without being dragon type. It's like, that's fair, because Gyarados is 100% a dragon. Charizard, even before his Mega Evolutions, was 100% a dragon. You know what I mean? It's just how it rolls. So yeah, Charizard first on Kaido's team. Next up, we have Dragalge, which is a poison dragon. So it's like the, the seahorse poison dragon Pokemon, going along with the logic that seahorses are dragons, like Kingdra, for instance. So yeah, I thought this was good, because this is where I started to have the gears turning, because Fairy is super effective against Dragon, but Poison is super effective against Fairy. So if you threw out a Fairy type against Dragalge, like, yeah, I guess it would work on Dragalge, maybe, but, like, also you gotta watch out for the Fairy. I also understand, yeah, Dragon is super effective against Dragon, but that's more of just like a, okay, Dragon super effective, his dragon is super effective against mine. It's just a beatdown at that point. So I'm being the most cautious over Ice and Fairy right here. So I went with Dragalge because I think I was going to use Dragalge in the last one, in the Toby Ropo. One of the Toby Ropo was going to have a Dragalge, and I switched it out, but I do like that Pokemon, so I wanted to roll with that here. Next up, we have a new dragon that I didn't even know existed, and that was Dracozolt, which is, I think, a fossil-type Pokemon. Anyway, it's electric dragon, so I'm like, all right, I don't have an electric yet, so let's throw that in there. If there are any electric dragons out there, and I found Dracozolt, and its design looks kind of stupid to me, but, you know, who am I to judge? You know, this is a Pokemon that came much later, I think Gen 8 or 9, so, yeah. So then, moving on, though, I decided, okay, that's enough dragons. I mean, you can never have too many dragons, but that's, for right now, that's too many dragons. So let's get something that's not a dragon, but resembles one, okay? And I was debating, and I also wanted one with a Mega Evolution, so we have Charizard who has the Mega, but he's the only one so far. So then I decided, okay, how about Steelix or Aggron? Because Steel is super effective against Fairy. So if an enemy throws out a Fairy type and is trying to just, like, run the entire board with a Fairy type, throwing out something that is just super effective against Fairies would be pretty good. So I was looking at the stats between Mega Steelix and Mega Aggron, and I think I just decided to go with Mega Aggron. I think he's slightly better in a certain capacity. So Mega Aggron, or just Aggron, is my next pick. So that's a Steel Rock type who can Mega Evolve. There you go. And then, oh yes, before we get to the Legendary, this was another option. It's not a dragon. It doesn't even resemble a dragon. This is probably the one that's going to be the dark horse on Kaido's team, where it's like one of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. But I think fitting into the overall backdrop of Wano and Kaido and Orochi's influence in Wano, this Pokemon makes sense. Galarian Weezing. So first of all, I just love Galarian Weezing because of the top hat, and you're just like, I'm an English gentleman, and then the smog coming out of the smokestack, the fact that Kaido and Orochi have taken over Wano and polluted it, and the factories are billowing out steam and smoke in the entire island, you know. So I think that fits, and once again, you have a poison type against the fairies. In fact, Galarian Weezing is a poison fairy. You know? So there you go. Also has a very impeccable mustache, I must say. So, you know, it kind of doesn't fit, but I wanted something else that was like, okay, it's not just going to be 6 dragons in a row, all right? So we have Aggron in there, and we also have a Galarian Weezing. All right. Is it any good? Well, you tell me after we have the legendary for Kaido, and this is the one that's mispronounced. Not even mispronounced. It's just there's 2 that I've always heard. It's always been back and forth. Rayquaza! Rayquaza! I like Rayquaza. Rayquaza sounds cool. Mega Rayquaza. You know, okay, whatever. Anyway, Rayquaza, okay? Really badass. I mean, I wish Rayquaza or Shiny Rayquaza was blue because Kaido is a blue dragon. So when you're talking about a dragon that's like serpentine, like a Chinese dragon like Shenron, Rayquaza probably comes closer to that than a lot of other Pokemon, and it's green. I thought about picking a Shiny Rayquaza because it's black and gold and it's really cool, but I'm like, you know what? Green is closer to blue, so let's just stick to the standard Rayquaza. So we have dragon flying type, but can Mega Evolve, and I remember the ability, and this is mostly just from that Dookie Shed video that, you know, Mega Rayquaza, you know, Dookie Shed made some, I wish he still did stuff. He hasn't uploaded in a while, because I was watching his stuff while preparing for this, but he gets the ability, Mega Rayquaza gets the ability of Delta Stream, and I think Delta Stream, it's like flying types lose their weaknesses, and it powers up some other stuff and whatever, so that's cool, right? That's neat, and Dragon Ascent, that's a cool move, which I believe is a flying move. But still. So we have Kaido's team. We have a Charizard. We have a Dragalge. We have a Dracozolt. We have an Aggron. We have a Galarian Weezing. And we have Rayquaza. Okay? Out of those, Rayquaza, Charizard, and Aggron can Mega. So we have 3 options, just like Shanks had for Mega Evolutions. There's also some, I think, that can Gigantamax. I'm not 100% sure. I think Charizard might be able to Gigantamax. But I don't know if you could do Mega Evolve and Gigantamax in the same round. If you're allowed one of each, that's kind of broken, but once again, I don't competitively play Pokemon, so let me know. So anyway, yeah, that's Kaido. As I said, some honorable mentions. I was going to pick Steelix, Goodra, because Goodra is a fairy dragon, I believe, and so that would have been interesting, and also Dragonite, because just the classic, but also like Haxorus and Garchomp was another one, you know, but I used Garchomp and Haxorus in the last one. That wasn't an explicit rule, like I couldn't use Pokemon that I used in the last one, because I used Gyarados in the last one on page 1, but I wanted to, like, diversify it at least a little bit, because there's so many Pokemon out there, I didn't want to keep doubling up or whatever, so that was Kaido. Moving on to Big Mom. Big Mom's was simultaneously, Big Mom's was the easiest for her regular Pokemon. She was the hardest to find a legendary that embodied her, okay? And so I was actually debating just not to have her have a legendary, like 6 regular Pokemon, because they fit her way better. I finally did settle on a legendary, and I can kind of justify it to make it make sense. It actually does make a lot of sense on this legendary, but we'll get to that at the end. So the first one I have is Snorlax. Let's just get the memes out of the way first. Like, Big Mom is a big mom. And so let's just have a Snorlax here. Just like Snorlax. Just eat and sleep, eat and sleep. Yeah, that's I mean, it's so obvious. Let's just go with Snorlax. I think Snorlax also has a Gigantamax version, so that's neat. So Snorlax, good solid normal type. Kind of a staple of Gen 1. You know, you get that Snorlax, you tack a Hyper Beam on that bad boy, and just, you know, there it is. That's fun. So that's Big Mom. Now, there are so many Pokemon. Her honorable mentions is the largest out of all of them. There are so many Pokemon that are based off of food. So I'm sure a lot of people are thinking of, like, Vanillux because he's an ice cream cone, or this is a tongue twister. It's Dachshund, as in the dog, but Doc's Bun because he has little cinnamon buns for ears. I put Doc's Bun in for a little bit. Slurpuff is another one. It's like the meringue Pokemon. It's like there's so many good options for food. But I went with Appleton, which is a grass dragon that actually has 2 different forms. I went with this form because it's just the more adorable one, and it looks like an apple pie, and so it's like, obviously, okay, so we have an apple pie dragon, and that works. And then, of course, the other Pokemon I had to pick, and this is the one that edged out all the other food-themed Pokemon. There's a lot of food-themed ones, but I had to go with Alcremie? I don't know how to pronounce it. Alcreme. It's a Pokemon that literally Gigantamaxes into a cake. Like, you know, and different varieties of cake as well. Wedding cake! It's just like, it's so obvious. Like, there's a lot of other food themes, but the Pokemon that literally Gigantamaxes into a huge wedding cake, which is like literally that was the whole end of Totland, which was like a scramble for Pudding, Sanji, and Chiffon to make a giant wedding cake. You understand that for like a good, you know, dozen chapters or so of One Piece, every time we saw Big Mom, it was just her saying wedding cake, over and over and over and over and over again. So much so that you don't ever want to hear the term wedding cake ever again. So the Pokemon that can literally turn into a wedding cake, okay? And Alcremie is a fairy type. So there you go. I originally, honestly, wanted to have like a fairy type theme with Big Mom, but I think that's the only Pokemon on her team that is a fairy type. I was gonna do fairy theme because she's like Totland ruler and like, you know, the fairy tales and everything like that, and like, you know, they have the homies that are dancing around and all that stuff. But with that being said, because she has the soul fruit and she can animate things, I was like looking into a lot of other Pokemon that were objects, like Chandelure I thought would have been perfect, Ghost Fire, Golurk, which is literally a Pokemon that's like a golem that's animated by the souls. Spirit Tomb was another one because he's literally just a soul bound to a rock, and so a lot of ghost, like a ghost fairy theme with her team. So I kind of had to cut a lot of Pokemon, all the Pokemon I just listed off, but I had to go with one of my personal favorites and one that really does embody the idea of Big Mom's soul fruit in a number of ways, and I went with Rotom. Okay, Rotom is a ghost that literally possesses various objects like household appliances, like a fan or a fridge, you know, and then or like a lawnmower. So like lawnmower with a Rotom is a grass electric, and the fridge is an ice electric. You see where this is going. And I loved Rotom. I never played Gen 4 until much later, but Rotom's like whole concept was really intriguing to me. So Rotom's awesome. And I was like, okay, which Rotom works perfectly? And you know what? It's Heat Rotom, the Rotom that inhabits an oven. And so it's a fire electric. So this works on so many levels. Number one, it works because it's an inanimate object like an oven that's being turned into an animated thing. And so that is Big Mom using the soul fruit to like throw a soul into a toaster oven, and then you have a homie, you know, that's like dancing around like, hi mama, I'm a toaster oven. You know what I mean? And I was like, that works perfectly. So it was great for that, but also it's a fire and an electric type, which is Prometheus and Zeus. Fire and electric, and I'm like, that is perfect. That is perfect. Also, I did look it up, and I literally just typed into Google because I was like short on time. I was like, what's the best Rotom form? And it was like, oh, the Heat Rotom, fire electric, hands down is the best. Now it is quad weak to wait, what was it quad weak to? It was quad weak to something, ground, I think it's quad weak to ground because electric fire. But I did read that it has a lot of other applications and some type variants that not a lot of other Pokemon have. So fire, electric, Heat Rotom, I had to go with that one, and that sort of covers all the bases with the soul fruit and Prometheus and Zeus, so I went with that. Let's see. Okay, for the ghost typing, because like I said, there was kind of like a ghost theme here. I could have went with Chandelure. I could have went with Spirit Tomb. I ended up going with Poltegeist. Poltegeist, which is just ghost. There's no other typing. It's just ghost, but it's a broken tea kettle. And I think that embodies the fairy tale Disney, like Beauty and the Beast, you know, kind of backdrop of this, you know, because I think we actually did see like tea kettles and stuff like as homies, like dancing around Totland. I mean, it works so well, you know what I mean? So here's like a little thing right out of a fairy tale book, a dancing tea kettle that's animated, that's a ghost type, you know, and it can attack you and stuff, like scalding water and stuff. I'm like, that works, okay? So we got Snorlax, we got Appleton, we got Alcremie, we got Heat Rotom, and we got a Poltegeist. And then ending it out with the legendary. This was the biggest pain in this entire list. Out of all of the Yonko, trying to find a legendary that embodied Big Mom. I was honestly just going to go with Kyogre because it's huge, you know. Wailord also was an honorable mention because it's just the meme. But I decided to go. Can you guess which one I went with? Okay, I'm assuming you guessed. I went with And this is not a good legendary. In terms of how legendaries are in Pokemon, I remember this one being particularly shitty. It's Regigigas. Regigigas, or Regigigas, it's Gigas. And, you know, I went with Regigigas, just a normal legendary, normal type legendary, because Regigigas and the other Regis are known as giants or titans. I think Titan is the official, and in some versions they are giants. That makes perfect sense because Big Mom and the Giants, and she has a name like Ikaku's Sovereignty, you know, the Spear of Elbaf, so she's connected to the Giants, obviously, so that works. And also kind of going along with Golurk, the golems, the Titans are kind of animated, like Regirock is a bunch of rocks that are animated, Regice is a block of ice that's animated in consciousness, Regigigas is the boss of all of them and is kind of like an animated form, so you kind of get the Soul Fruit aspect in there, the aspect of the homie, and then you also get the aspect of Titans and Giants, and that's like what Big Mom embodies, and Big Mom is also really big, you know, so Regigigas is big as well. So that's the case there. That's the situation there. I know it's not a good legendary. Even me, who's not into competitive Pokemon, understands that Regigigas sucks. But I think it has an ability called Slow Start, which means it sucks for like the first 5 turns. It's really bad. But you know, that's so that's Big Mom's team. Let me know if there's anything that you could do with that. All right. Moving on next to Whitebeard. Whitebeard, comparatively, was really easy to do. And so I was like, all right, Whitebeard, no jokes about it, nothing really all that complicated with Whitebeard. Let's just go beat down. Let's just go physical brawlers beat down. Throw a few ground types in there that no Earthquake, or other Pokemon, doesn't have to be a ground type, that no Earthquake, because obviously Gura know me. But when at the end of the day, we're talking Whitebeard, it's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be like a boom, and just crush your face, okay? In that regard, I was looking up Pokemon that had an incredibly high attack stat. Not special attack stat, regular attack stat. Let's roll with Heracross, damn it. Heracross, specifically Mega Heracross, has a really decent attack stat, okay? Bug fighting Mega Evolution, and I love Heracross. Horn is basically a mustache, right? So you got Heracross in there, Mega Evolves. He could just flip a building. He could flip a mountain, for God's sake. So let's start off with strong with this. Let's go Heracross. Yeah. Next up, Mamoswine. Yeah, Mamoswine's got tusks that are white. That's like Whitebeard. There you go, right? Mamoswine. We got Ice Ground, capable of Earthquake, and just like a giant mammoth. Picture Whitebeard riding around on a giant mammoth. I just realized I should have used Wailord for Whitebeard. See, this is the thing. There's so many Pokemon. So many Pokemon, and some of them are so obvious that I miss them completely. I just realized Wailord because the Moby Dick, and I did not include Wailord here, so I'll put him in the honorable mentions. Another honorable mention was Ursaring, because Ursaring is kind of like the father bear, and it's like protective of its young, so like the father-son dynamic that Whitebeard has with his crew, you know, something like that. But yeah, Wailord would have definitely been an honorable mention. I did not go with Wailord. Next up is Annihilape. Annihilape, and I'm so happy to use Annihilape. That boss fight in Pokemon Violent, that was the toughest fight for me, just because my Pokemon were not leveled up high enough for that battle, and the typing was horrid, but Annihilape wrecked my shit more times than you could possibly count. I mean, I was up for hours trying to get through that fight. And Annihilape is a fighting ghost. Whitebeard loves to fight, and he's also a ghost. Because he's dead. Now, you could also say maybe I should have used Annihilape for Luffy, because Luffy is Monkey D. Luffy. We'll get to that, but I feel like Annihilape works better. Also, the idea that, like, Whitebeard is usually pretty chill. He's usually pretty calm. But if you mess with his family, you mess with his crew, you are about to be delivered unto you the wrath of God. All right, he will literally start Ragnarok if you mess with his kids. All right, if you mess with his crew. So Annihilape fighting Ghost, I think it works for Whitebeard. I gotta go with it. Next up, we have Slacking. Slacking was like, that was the one I was like Ursaring, and then I was like, well, wait a second, if we're gonna do normal type beat down, we gotta have Slacking, right? So Slacking's in there. perfect for that. And then we have Stoutland. Stoutland was the first one I came up with because Stoutland is a normal type, but he's a dog, and he's really just super loyal, and also he's got an epic mustache. Like, out of all the Pokemon, Stoutland's mustache is so cool. It flows, you know? So it's like, I know a lot of normals here, but I think Whitebeard's favorite type would probably be normal, even over, you know, the ground type because of Earthquake, which I'm pretty sure Slacking can learn Earthquake. I'm pretty sure Stoutland can probably learn Earthquake. Mamoswine could definitely learn it. Annihilate might be able to learn Earthquake. So as long as you got Earthquake on at least 2 or 3 Pokemon, it works fine. Or Magnitude or something like that. Magnitude would probably be better. But yeah, Stoutland though, I think Whitebeard would have an affinity for normal types. And they did have a dog named Stefan on Whitebeard's crew. And so Whitebeard had a dog named Stefan, and then normal type Stoutland. He's like, oh, he's a good boy. You know, like, picture Whitebeard having a Stoutland. He's like, oh, who's a good Stoutland? He's like, woof. And he's like, yeah. You know, like that. You can see that. You can see that, right? So with that being said, now we have arrived at Whitebeard's Legendary. And I was just trying to look at all the legendaries and which one is like super big, tough legendary, you know, that they just physically just beat you up. I was actually kind of disappointed in this one because the one that I really wanted to use, I looked at the stats, and the HP of this Pokemon is insane. It's really good. But the attack stat was not as good as I thought it would be, considering how badass it looks. But I decided to go with it anyway because I thought it worked aesthetically. We're going with Zygarde, complete form. So like the mech version of Zygarde. It's like this, like basically like a Megazord or whatever. Just like Zygarde, you know, like just to physically punch you. Like I said, the attack stat on Zygarde, not that great, but it has HP out the ass, you know? So, yeah, I went with that. So, Dragon Ground for Zygarde. So, that's Whitebeard's team. Pretty straightforward. We got a Heracross, Mamoswine, Annihilate, Slacking, Stoutland, and a Zygarde. Out of these Pokemon, only one of them is capable of Mega, so that's Heracross. I don't know if any of the others have a Gigantamax available. I don't think they do. I don't think Slacking does or anything like that. But, oh man, Slacking should have gotten a Mega now that I'm thinking about it. That would have been awesome. But I think they should go back to Megas. I think Pokemon peaked with Mega. You know, the Gigantamax and Z moves and all that extra stuff, crystallizing in the last game. It's just like, you guys peaked with Mega. You had a really good idea with Mega Evolutions. You should have just stuck with that. You know, every gen we could have gotten more Mega Evolutions. But, yeah, what can you do? You know what I mean? That's just how it is. But yeah, that's Whitebeard. So now moving on to the opposite of Whitebeard, we have Blackbeard. All right, so Blackbeard. First off, let's just get the legendary out of the way. I'm gonna break the system and just use this. It's Darkrai. I thought about Giratina, but like, it's Darkrai. All right, you know, Blackbeard's theme, you know, is the darkness and gravity. So I went with Darkrai as the legendary. Let's just get that one out of the way. It's super obvious. Pure dark type there. Houndoom. Houndoom, I think, works. Dark Fire, capable of a Mega Evolution. Also the fact that Blackbeard fought Ace, so the darkness against fire, you know, there's something to go with that. Oh, I also thought of, is it Lunatone? No, Lunatone is the rock. No, the Pokemon in Sun, Solgaleo, and then the other one, that was the moon Pokemon. That was the other consideration for Blackbeard, but I had to go with Darkrai. It's Blackbeard, for God's sake, you know? So I went with that. So, Houndoom. Zoroark. This thing. All right. Dark type as well, but also the illusion Pokemon, and can turn into other Pokemon and can turn into other things and make it be illusions. And I'm like, okay, that's really cool, because that also kind of fits with Blackbeard really, really well. How he like laid low and pretended to be somebody he wasn't, and then boom, he, you know, steals the Yami Mami no Mi, kills Thatch, and goes off to his own machinations and everything like that. So Zoroark works really well. Gengar. Once again, I just thought it fit him. Gengar, you have Ghost Poison, also capable of a Mega Evolution, and a Gigantamax for that matter. Sharpedo, once again, going with the piratey angle of it, like an angry shark that can also Mega Evolve, and it got spikes coming out of it. It's a water dark type. I know I'm leaning heavily on the dark type with Blackbeard, but like, How can you not? His might be the most thematic out of all. Yeah. In terms of like picking a specific type and just focusing on that for the Emperor, Blackbeard's is the one because he kind of embodies the dark type because literally he has the darkness fruit and it's gravity and stuff. So yeah, we're going with Sharpedo there, Water Dark Mega. And then also ending us out because in the SBSs, I think it was when the Warlords were talked about, like, what is the Warlords like hobbies? Like, what do they like? And I base the Toby Ropo a lot on their hobbies. And I think Blackbeard's hobby is archaeology or studying history, you know, fossils, that kind of stuff. And with that being said, I went with Aerodactyl, because Aerodactyl is a flying rock, so that covers some types we haven't had yet. And also, it is a Mega Evolution. So out of all of the Emperors, Blackbeard, I think, has the most Mega options at 4. Houndoom, Gengar, Sharpedo, and Aerodactyl all have Mega options. So you have the board open, and then Darkrai I already said. So there's Blackbeard's team. Honestly, pretty simple and to the point. I did think about Giratina because Giratina kind of embodies the chaos world or whatever, and I'm thinking, like, okay, distortion world, Blackbeard, the darkness, like maybe, but like Darkrai is perfect. So there's Blackbeard's team. And pretty much the honorable mentions were every other dark type I was kind of looking into, and I settled on that. Next up is Luffy. Okay, so get ready for all of the monkey Pokemon, all the simians. First of all, Infernape. I mean, come on, how do you not have an Infernape? Firefighting. I went with more of a fighting theme with Luffy because he's typically just likes to brawl. That's Luffy. He's a pretty straightforward guy. So we're starting off with an Infernape, firefighting Pokemon, starter, final evolution of a starter. I think it works great for Luffy. We have a Medicham, which is not a monkey, but Medicham does have a Mega Evolution, and it's a fighting psychic. And I imagine, like, Luffy is really, you know, he's skillful when he's fighting, but he also has future sight. So having a psychic on his team, I think, made sense because he does fight in that way now ever since his fight with Katakuri. So, and also Medicham, like, gains, like, extra arms, like, I think, like spectral arms to fight with. And so that's kind of like Luffy when he's fighting, you know, like Gatling and stuff like that. So I went with a Medicham fighting psychic that has a Mega Evolution. I think it works. We went with Ampipom. Ampipom, the evolution of Apom. Pretty basic monkey, normal, no megas, but it's got 2 tails that are hands that can slap the shit out of you, so there you go. Also, Ampipom is very fun and happy, and that's Luffy at his core. You know, at the end of the day, he fights with a certain level of happiness and joyous, like, innocence to him, especially when he goes into Gear 5th. So I'm like, that works for him. Going along with that, also, that kind of, like, happiness, that, like, the Pokemon that's a fighting type that'll beat the shit out of you, but will do it with a smile on its face. Pawmot. So you got Pawmot, who is a electric fighting. And so I'm like, once again, Luffy has Thor Elephant Gun, so he has a few electrical abilities. He has a fire ability in Red Hawk, which I used for Infernape and like Red Rock and stuff. So there we go. Pawmot embodies the electric moves and also the happy, just like, ha ha ha, you know, fighting you. That's kind of like Luffy's style there. But I felt like, okay, we need at least one more monkey jumping on the bed here. So I went with Rillaboom. Rillaboom, who is final evolution of a starter and just big giant monkey that just boom bangs its chest, okay? And it's just a straight grass type, which is fine. Infernape, fire fighting, Ampipom, normal, Medicham, fighting psychic with a mega option, Pawmot, electric fighting, and Rillaboom, grass. There was honorable mentions as every other monkey in not One Piece, every other monkey in Pokemon or ape or anything. I know there was a Pokemon that was like an orangutan based off an orangutan. I considered that Pokemon. There was also the 3 monkeys, like the ones you fight against, like the first gym in Gen 5 in Black and White. There's like the water monkey and the grass monkey and the fire monkey, and then they evolve, but I'm like, they're really not all that great, so I skipped over them. Now with the legendary, I think this was pretty easy, actually, the legendary for Luffy, and that was Solgaleo. So Solgaleo, oh man, I really should have. Darkrai is too easy, but I should have went with the other one because that would have been a parallel with Sun and Moon. The 2 legendaries of Sun and Moon embody Luffy and Blackbeard. So think of that as like another possibility. You could switch out Darkrai for the other thing if you want. But yeah, Solgaleo works for Luffy so well, okay? First of all, it's a lion. So on top of the Sunny having a lion figurehead, Luffy also has techniques named after lions like Leo Bazooka. There it is. Also, the lion is the king of the jungle. Luffy's going to be king of the pirates. That works there. Sol, as in sun, so Sol Galeo, the sun Pokemon. Luffy is the sun god, Nika. I mean, it works in so many ways. And Solgaleo is psychic and steel. Luffy's tough as steel. And like I said, the psychic angle kind of makes sense because he fights, you know, a little bit with like future sight and observation now. So you can include that with Luffy. So I think that is a legendary for Luffy was probably the most obvious. And so I went with that. Unless there's another one that's even more obvious. So there you go. But yeah, honorable mention, every other monkey Pokemon. Now moving on to the final Emperor, the newest Emperor, so to speak, and the strongest. Buggy D Clown. All right. Let's start off with probably the most obvious one. I went with a circus theme with Buggy. Mr. Mime. But not just Mr. Mime. I made it a Galarian Mr. Mime just to add some variety. Mr. Mime, I think, is just regular psychic type. Galarian Mr. Mime is ice psychic. Adds a little bit more personality to it. I'm like, okay. So you got Galarian Mr. Mime. I thought, okay, circuses have elephants, you know, and so I thought, all right, maybe Donphan, but to add a little bit more. I like Copper Aja more, just because Copper Aja just looks awesome, and it's a steel type, and steel is like kind of one of my favorite types. It probably is my favorite type, honestly. So Copper Aja added on there as well. Brione, I guess. Straight water type, but is known as the pop star Pokemon is Brione, and also the fact that it is a seal, not a seal, yeah, it's a seal. It's a seal Pokemon, right? I don't remember this Pokemon at all. I don't even remember what gen it's from, but it's a pop star Pokemon, and Luffy, not Luffy, Buggy is the clown star, pop star, clown star. It makes sense, right? Yeah, sure. We'll go with that, right? Absolutely. Next up is Alolan Marowak, because also in circuses you will have fire dancers or people that have like the fire batons and they throw up and they jump through the fire rings and everything. And Alolan Marowak literally carries the bone that's lit on fire that he does like fire dances with and everything like that in performances. Fire Ghost, good on that there. So I went with Alolan Marowak. Oratorio, I don't know. Oricorio, Pom-Pom variant, and it's a bird. It's an electric flying bird, okay? An electric flying Pokemon that does the pom-poms and little dancing like cheerleader. And I'm like, all right, yeah, sure. So going with the circus theme. So we got a clown, which is Mr. Mime. We got an elephant, which is Copper Aja. We got a seal performing water tricks, you know, as the pop star. We got Brione. We got Oricorio, which is a pom-pom dancing bird. And we got Alolan Marowak that's doing like the fire dances in the background. And then ending it out with the legendary. What legendary best embodies Buggy? And I thought about it for maybe a couple seconds, and I realized there's only one Pokemon, there's only one legendary that really embodies everything that Buggy is about. Arceus. Arceus is God. Buggy is God. Do you really see? I think this works great. I thought about Victini, because Victini's the victory Pokemon, so like Buggy always manages to come out ahead of the game somehow. But does he, though? See, I was going to go Ho-Oh, because Ho-Oh has that lore that if you see a Ho-Oh, your greatest dream will be realized, or like luck will be washed over you. Buggy is lucky, but he's also gotten the shit beat out of him by Mihawk and Crocodile a lot, and so I don't know if Buggy's like in a great situation right now. It might end with him being on top, but it's like, can you really call it good luck if he's getting the crap beat out of him by Crocodile every day? But no, I went with Arceus because it's just the meme. Arceus, you got all these circus Pokemon and then literal God. Arceus, jump through the ring of fire. Also, Arceus is a normal, but it has the plates that you can attach it to. So you know how it goes there. So yeah, there you go. You know, switch out whatever plates on your Arceus that you want, and there's your team, right? And there's Buggy. All right, so there we go. That was the video. Yes. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. This is always fun to talk about, to do a little Pokemon One Piece crossover. I didn't spend 15 minutes forgetting about the name of... Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, please tell me no. Lantern. That's Lantern. I got it. I got it. All right, no. We'll never go back. We'll never go back. I want a lantern to be lasered onto my gravestone. Yep. All right, well, anyway, that's the video, so let me know how I did. Maybe one of those is, like, secretly, like, wait a second, Tekking. I've run the numbers, and Shanks' team is literally the most competitively viable team that you've ever created. It's the numbers are perfect. I doubt it, but there are the options. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Tekking 101, signing out. Gotta catch them all.